All right, everyone, this is the time to begin. Welcome to Dispatches from the Field, an online initiative from the Explorers Club designed to bring our global community together, share the extraordinary stories of what our members are doing, and provide an area for people to be able to connect, which is always a fun thing. For those of you that are new to joining us, here's how it's going to work. We're going to kick it off with a featured speaker. Today we have Wayne White. Just get ready. It's really going to be good. Following Wayne White's talk, feel free to put in some questions into the chat. We'll be able to get to a few of them before we shift into what we call the campfire sessions, where there are breakout groups where you get to really be able to meet, connect with other members. And we'll have Wayne bounce around in between different groups so that everyone gets the chance to connect with him as well. So with that, Wayne White is the former three-time winter site manager at the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station, where he was responsible for the health and safety of 3 winter crews of approximately 42 personnel, as well as the station itself and all of its scientific assets. His tenure unfolded in one of the harshest environments on Earth, nearly 5 months of darkness, temperatures below 100 degrees Fahrenheit, yes, below 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and complete isolation from the outside world. Over 3 winters, he logged more than 4,300 miles in the polar night and chronicled his experience in his book, Cold: 3 Winters at the South Pole. Now, today, Wayne will share stories from Cold, offer insights from his recent interview for Ian Nathan's forthcoming The Thing Expanded, coming in early 2026, and connect the realities of the Antarctic wintering to lessons for future Mars missions. Please join me in welcoming Wayne White, and to set the mood for Wayne, let's begin with a little teaser of The Thing.
100,000 years ago, it found its way into our galaxy. Trapped in the frozen wasteland of Antarctica, it could not escape. Now the men of Station 4 have made a monumental discovery. An alien creature had frozen, but not to death. And man,
it isn't Benny,
is the warmest place to hide.
All right, folks, can you hear me okay? Well, I am honored to be here today. And after that wonderful introduction by Brandy and then the trailer for The Thing, I mean, where do you go from there? It can only be, downhill. So prepare yourself. My topic today, as Brandy says, isolation and The Thing, 3 winners at the South Pole by me. All right. And I have to do a slideshow. So let's do that. All right, that should be better. Okay, so look at that. That's the Marvin Pomerantz Observatory and the South Pole Telescope at the South Pole in winter. Beautiful shot with the auroras. All right, who am I? Some dude got to do this today. I'm a 3-time winter manager at the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station, author of Cold. I'm also a U.S. Marine veteran, and I am the current president of the Old Antarctic Explorers Association. Check out the website, Old Antarctic Explorers Association. And I'm currently a consultant for Polar Science Alliance that's working on obtaining the next 20-year Antarctic contract, and we'll see how that goes. Now, folks, what's important about this slide is, and I don't have a lot of time today, so I'm going to do my best to stay on track. but I don't want to miss some of the most important things. And right away, let's talk about a South Pole winter crew, which I had the honor of being the leader for 3 of them. The top photo is 2020, middle is 2019, and the bottom is 2017. A South Pole winter crew is made up of between 40 and 46 or so personnel, depending on the missions for that year. People will always ask how many are science and how many are support. Usually be about 8 to 10 science people, and the rest are support. Um, and some people get on that. Why so many support? Well, support is also people that they're also supporting the science. The power plant, for example, the vehicle maintenance, the different types of the computer people, the IT folks. We're all working together. The main mission at the Scott South Pole Station or in any of the Antarctic bases such as McMurdo, Palmer, or field camps, it's all about science. It's all run by the National Science Foundation. And regardless of what craft a person goes down there with, it's all about science. And that's what we're supporting. These people in these crews are some exceptional individuals. I have interviewed many of them and was always looking for much more than just what they were hired to do. Now, I don't go into it, but prior to my time at the South Pole, I worked around the world and I specialized in remote sites. So I spent many years out on remote islands like Wake Island or Shemya, Alaska, um, uh, Midway Atoll, Ascension Island, Diego Garcia, other places, and then through the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I have a lot of background with leading teams in austere environments. South Pole Station or McMurdo or whatever, but I'm just going to stay on South Pole winter cruise. That's what these people are highly selected. Um, they go through certain testing. They go through very extensive medical testing to get there, and some pretty good background checks to make sure that we get the right people, which I'll talk about. Because you think you got the right people, but you don't always, and that's part of the fun, finding out, how people are going to work out over a long, cold, dark winter. All right. All right, folks, this is where it happens. Around February 15th, let's remember that what are the seasons at the South Pole? It's only 2, winter, summer. Summer is around November through November 1st through about February 15th, and the rest of the year is the winter. Now, you've hired these people, and these people know that they're going to be down there for a year. Most of them will be there a year, some a little bit shorter if they come late in the season. But they know around February 15th, that last aircraft is going to leave. It's going to fly away, and there's no way out until the beginning or so around November. Now, I've been, like I said, worked remote sites for many years, and so to me, it wasn't that big a deal. But I'll tell you what, I knew my crew members were concerned. And you don't really know what's in the hearts and minds of the people when they see that last aircraft leave and, on February 15th and know there's no way out until about, sometime in November. But I used to love those days. I love those days when that last aircraft left and we were together. So we say goodbye, the aircraft flies away. There actually were a couple that transited later, small Ken Borick from Canada, Twin Otters, and they had a DC-3 Bastler. They fly through there, but they were just transiting. They're just gone. You're there. What do you do? Well, first thing I like to do, kind of steady the crew. Some people are nervous. I mean, rightfully so. Because here's the deal, too. When you're interviewing somebody for a South Pole winter position, I've seen this working in different sites around the world, so I knew you've got something that these people want. They'll tell you anything you want to hear in order to get the job. And then it's, as a leader and as part of the panel selecting, you got to make sure that you're getting a person who really wants to be there and who really can be there. I don't have time to go into all this stuff today, like the training and testing and all that. Too bad. But it's pretty extensive, and you end up getting a pretty interesting cross section of society. When you hire a plumber at the South Pole, you're not hiring a plumber. You're hiring someone who can do much more than that. Or the carpenter. That's a job that it can be working on elevators, can be doing all kinds of stuff. I don't know if you're supposed to be working on elevators, and I think about it, but oh well, what the hell? That's what you got. So anyway, they're a fairly extraordinary group of people. Aircraft left. gather them in the gym. What do you do? Well, that's what I did. This is what's traditionally done. A winter preparation training video, the thing. Now, folks, there's actually three versions of this. There was an old, I think Howard Hark did it in the 1950s. It has James Arness used to play Matt Dillon, who plays the Thing, and that's at an Arctic research station. Then there's the Thing, the John Carpenter around 1980, around 1980 something, early 80s, real classic. And then there's a later version too, and we show all three versions. Now, I would say unanimously that the John Carpenter version is the most is the most popular by far. And my crews, a lot of times the crews would say, "Can we just show that one first, then we can leave?" And I'd say, "No, we're going to go watch them in order because I wanted them to see the technology, the difference, and how the changes were from the old black and white with James Arness, and then how it's gone through the years with the metamorphosis of the movie." So we'd watch all three versions. But really, when you think about it, what's better than this? What's better than building a team by finding an alien spacecraft, by tying up crew members, by horrible killing creatures? That's a real bonding experience. And I used to have some fun with it. Called it a training video, and some things that happened, and it's in my book. In my book, I write more extensively about this. But I had a short story. I had a situation once where some Canadians were transiting. They were leaving the next morning, but they were still there the night we showed the thing. They wanted to come to the film. And I had crew members come up to me and I said, "Well, what do you think?" And mostly it was no, no, no. And I was a no also. This is a rite of passage for a South Pole winter crew. It isn't something for guests that are going to be with us that night and fly on, because we do talk about other things during the movie. I started off more like a team meeting than movie night. And in the end, I I found videos, the thing videos, all three, and I set up a movie room for the Canadians and said you can watch it in there if you really want to see it. And I felt bad about it, but I think I made the right choice. You sometimes, leadership, you just have to do what you have to do. I thought, is this going to be some kind of international incident after this? I never heard another word about it. But it is a rite of passage for a South Pole winter crew. And you've got these people down there that are amazing characters. One year, we had a guy that was actually doing railgun technology, one of our science people. Man, I was all for hire. I wanted that guy. Railgun at the South Pole. What could go wrong with that? Maybe we blow up the Vostok station or something by accident. But the fact is these are the kind of people you want. So you get these incredible people, and it's a cool night watching the thing, watching how these people defend themselves, watching how they do what they do to survive. There's something to be said for it. So it is a rite of passage, and it's something that the crews always look forward to. Then what happens? Okay, they've seen the thing. They've seen the thing, and now sun begins to set. Now, folks, just so you know, at the South Pole, the sun takes a while to set. It doesn't just go down overnight. It takes, you'll see it over a period of a couple of months, lower and lower and lower on the horizon. And temperatures are dropping too, from probably an average in the summers of maybe minus 30s or so, minus 40s, all the way up until, geez, almost up to zero at times, down to the winter temperatures, which is the average is minus 70 something, and then it will get colder than minus 100. So the isolation begins. Sun's going down, things are getting colder, and it's starting to get dark, and that starts affecting people, and you start seeing that right away. And then what happens? I've got a chart I like to use. It actually shows the different how the light works there, and by month, and how it gets dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and finally down to total darkness, which it lasts for several months. And then you get these fantastic auroras. This is Dr. Jeffrey Chen. Dr. Chen was one of our scientists who took this, and you can see it's been enhanced, but it's very cool. And he did the cover of my book, Cold. He happened to be outside on the cover of that book when I'd come back from a 7-mile walk, and it was minus 104 degrees, and he saw me coming back into the station and got the great shot that turned into be my cover. But it's dark and cold. And folks, everybody handles that differently. And I have years being in isolated situations. So to me, it really wasn't that big a deal. But here's the problem with being at the South Pole is that, or any isolated spot, some people handle isolation different. Some people drink. There's alcohol at the South Pole, and that can be an issue. But one of the biggest problems I've seen, whether it's the South Pole or whether it's any isolated spot or even a war zone, is how off ice or off site situations at home will affect a person. And I've seen meltdowns at Pole and other places and other remote islands I've worked where people have had bad news from home. I mean, we had a guy on one of the crews that had his, happens more than once. We had a couple of them, but found out they're being divorced. They didn't find out till they're down there and they can't come back, which is nice. And it's an issue. We had the COVID year, 2020, when the world was going crazy and people were dying. And I don't care if anybody wants to minimize COVID. I don't. It was a real issue. And something I've always thought was mankind's demise wouldn't be nuclear war, it'd be some kind of a virus or something. And that looked like we were on our way. What do we do though in the winter? People stay busy. It's cold outside. As Brandy said, it can be as cold as minus 100. I think this photo in the bottom left, I'm not wearing my furs. I'm wearing it's a generation something military suit, but it was about a minus 104, 105 on that day. I was coming back from a walk. You see the red lights. And the reason for the red lights is that we have these radio telescopes, whatever you want to call them. They're light, they're electronic telescopes, and light doesn't do them good, doesn't do good things for them. So all lights outside at the South Pole have to be red, including your headlamps. But folks, there's a million activities and things that you do to keep the crew from going crazy, because goddamn, let me tell you, you get some crazy stories, whether it's at Pole or whether it's at some of the other isolated spots I've worked. Jesus Christ, people can go insane, that's for sure. There's actually a straitjacket that's in the clinic. It was left over from the Navy days. They probably used it. I'm a Marine, so we wouldn't need something like that. It'd be different. But for those sailors, it's probably a different situation. Nonetheless, winter activities, you're working, you're doing things, your social life, you've got social things going on. Midwinter is huge down around June 20th or so, Midwinter Day. That's been a historic holiday at the Antarctic bases. And that was a greeting card that one of my crews came up with that would go to all the other Antarctic stations, and then they'd send theirs. And in this case, I don't know that picture. I'm up in the left-hand corner. They had me like this green screen thing, and I had no idea why. I still don't really understand it, but it looks kind of cool anyway. But anyway, so winter activities, it's you're staying busy. Now, let me talk about something else. I've spoke a couple times at the Mars Society conventions, because the South Pole, and that was the topic, the South Pole and Mars. What are the parallels? A Mars mission, even a lunar mission to a point, something where you're going to be there for a while. There are certain parallels in what isolation is going to do, how you're going to handle it. I was just talking to someone about that called the virtual reality. Virtual reality, being able to use. One winter they sent down these headset things, and you could set up a certain scenario you like. One was a tropical jungle and had sounds and stuff. I have cats. God damn, I got a lot of cats, thanks to my kind wife while I was away. So I got over 20 cats. I love cats. And they had one that had cats. And cats are like all over you. I like that a lot. But I think most people would have a problem. I don't think they'd want to be surrounded by this many cats. VR thing. Anyway, I got to go through this fast because this is supposed to be short, and I'm probably going too long now. But I could talk about this stuff for days. There are some YouTube videos that I did at the Adventures Club of Los Angeles where I go into more detail on these, and I encourage you to look at those, because I had an hour and a half to go through, and I do a better job of explaining. But what I want to explain for today, though, is just the isolation, how that affects people, and how also you can see why it's sort of a backdrop for a science fiction movie. When you're facing darkness and these amazing auroras, and you've got these scientific telescopes. I mean, you feel like you're on a science fiction movie set. All right, around August, you start seeing the sun pop up, and you don't see much at first. You just see a tiny bit of light on the horizon, and that's a big deal. And then over a period of time, the sun rises a little bit more every day, and finally you get sort of a sunrise. Now, folks, the interesting thing is it doesn't get warmer really to start. In fact, to me, it always felt colder because now you can see the frost on all the buildings. Now you can see the how it froze everything up outside and the ice and how it's blown our skiway out and how it's done all the things those Antarctic winters have done. You get to feel it. The cover of Cold was taken at minus 104, and it's in sunlight right after the sun had returned. But it's a big deal. Now, what I like to tell the crews though is, although the sun's back, there's no warmth, and the crews have to understand that they still got 3 more months or so there. They're not leaving for that long. So it's a good thing that they understand right away that that sun's back, cool. It's good for your psyche and all that, but we're not leaving for a while. Now, folks, I was contacted recently by Ian Nathan. He's the director for a new movie, The Thing Expanded. And what it is, it's a real deep dive into the John Carpenter version of The Thing. And several hours long. It's going to be real long. Ian Nathan, he does these type of documentaries, and you can look it up. Just look up Ian Nathan, The Thing Expanded, and you'll get to see where they are. It's pretty cool. It's coming out in the first quarter of next year, and I was interviewed, and I'll be in the movie along with John Carpenter and a lot of the actors that were in the movie. And I think it's cool to be in the same thing that John Carpenter's in. He's quite a director, that's for sure. And then to have my part in these my house in Texas, which is quite a museum. But to be cast in there along with these people and get to explain what the thing meant to us at the South Pole, the rite of passage that it is. It was a big deal to be part of that, and I'm very honored to be in The Thing Expanded. So I encourage you to take a look at that, do some research later. And I think I've gone over, so I'm going to stop sharing this thing and let's go. Randy, what do you want to do?
Wayne, thank you so much. It's so funny because these moments in listening to you where you're like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. I just came back from a walk for 7 miles and minus 107.
It wasn't 9 miles, so
Yeah, you get
it's all relative.
an idea of just how extreme the environment is. And I find it really interesting how, in the same way that science fiction helps inform technology, right? How exploration like this in environments like this inform even down to movies and films. And it captures our imagination in a completely different way because the large majority of us are never going to experience something like what you've experienced.
Well, I was honored to do that, and I cut this short today, and I didn't have time to go into the alien encounters I had down there. Maybe sometime in the future we can talk about that, but we'll just stay on track with. I don't even want to open a can of worms. Let me tell you, I made a mistake in my book by discounting the alien thing, and I realize now that I could have sold 1 million copies if I'd have just made some stuff up about going for a potluck lunch on an alien spacecraft or something. But I chose not to do that. But there's people out there that are making a living out of it.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's always room for cold number two. We've got a few questions that are coming in, and before we break into campfire, I'm just going to ask you one. And if you can give us a little bit of a synopsis, go in a little bit deeper about the selection process. I mean, what are some of the things that you've learned over time to really look out for to try to get the best possible people and personnel?
What a cool question. And really, so much of this and so much of what I did comes down to that. I have a slide in one presentation I did that showed the process from someone seeing an ad somewhere and answering it to what happens later. But briefly, that's it. There's a website now, Polar Science Alliance, a company that I'm aligned with, that I'm consulting for, that's trying to win the next contract, is actually taking names for jobs and things now. In anticipation, and we'll see what happens. But that's the first thing, that someone shows interest. Then they'll talk to some kind of a recruiter, whether it's the science people, whether it's one of the various companies, because it's more than one company together down there. And that's what makes the job also as a winter manager difficult. No, not difficult. I would never say that it'd be difficult, but challenging is that there's no one down there. Not, this isn't the Marines anymore. No one works for me. No one, I can't give orders. And people have tried it. And I write about that in the book. It doesn't work. People don't respond to military command very well. And so, nonetheless, they go through and then they'll get on a phone interview, and the recruiters who usually have been down there know what to ask. And then, there's a crew of 40, 42, whatever it's going to be, there's for the South Pole, there's actual face-to-face interviews. They don't do that for McMurdo or Palmer and things. It's just a lot of money to do that. But for South Pole winners, they've learned if they don't face-to-face interview people, bad things can happen. So then you have a face-to-face interview. Now, I've done this before for other places, but never like the South Pole, or they're going to be. You're looking for certain things, and I'll tell you what I look for. Number one, I learned this after a while. You're looking for people who love what they do. They love what they do. If they're a plumber, there's plumbers out there that love plumbing. I mean, they love the challenge. They love figuring out how you make this work and how you make that work. Because like I said, as a plumber, you're not just a plumber, you're working on power plant piping and things too. You're working on fuel lines and things. You're working on all kinds of stuff. Any of these jobs can get into all kinds of other things. So, but you want someone who loves what they do, because here's the problem. And we got these people, maybe we got some in the audience today. Oh, I love Antarctica. It's my wish list. I want to go to Antarctica. And let me tell you what, I'm not one of them. I don't find it all that beautiful. How's that sound? It's cold and it's dark. I love the tropics. I love the jungle. I love the life that we don't have at the South Pole. But what I goddamn well love more than anything else is that crew, as being in charge of that crew, being there to get that crew through an Antarctic winter. That meant everything to me. So most important was that's for me much more than I've always wanted to see 1,000 miles of dead ice in every direction. So, but there's people that want to do it. They want to check the box. Oh, I've been to the South Pole. Okay, here's the problem. They get down there, they take the hero shot taken at the actual geographic South Pole. They send it back to mom and dad and all their buddies. Now they did it. Hey, they got a year to go. How's that going to go? So when you're interviewing, you're looking for people who love what they do, and you know they're going to love what they do. You're also looking for certain telltale things, problems they might have with people. Now we run them through this team building, and again, I'm going too long, but just quickly, I'm going to hurry. We went through a team building thing. We'd have them do little exercises together. You put them in little groups, and I'd be watching them, and our instructor would be watching them. We're not watching for who can solve the problem. We're watching for who's the pain in the ass that tries to take over the group and dominate. And you pick those people out. That's what you're looking for. Can they be cohesive team members? People aren't perfect. Everybody has their flaws. Sure as shit I do. But the fact of the matter is that how will they get along with other people? So you're trying to ascertain that. And the good thing was on a panel like I was on, especially after my first year, I knew more what I was looking for, but I had people on the panel that also were all Antarctic veterans. They were all former winter overs. And together we could sort of see. And I'm going to give you, it's in the book, spoiler, I've ruined it. Don't ever say you want to go to the South Pole to see a polar bear. Don't do it. If you do that, right away. And I write about that. Okay. So the selection process, then you're running through a team building thing. Then we'd go up in the mountains in Estes Park, running through some more training, team building. And then we go to fire or emergency response training. They can go either way, but most of them are on the fire team. And you get to see people under stress with an SCBA on, with people pulling fire hose. Because goddamn, let me tell you, at the South Pole, when those fire alarms go off, your life depends on, you want to have something catch your attention, have the alarm go off that there's a fire in the power plant. And what that means, and I've had it. I'm watching a movie one night. It was adventure movie night with Wayne. It got interrupted rudely by fire in the power plant. So we're all running down there the next thing. All right, so I kind of went into it. So you're watching these people and you're watching for other things, and you want them to be good at what they do. And even with that, people get through sometimes that, or people have issues where they melt down due to their own whatever they've got going on inside, or things at home. I hope I sort of answered that. I know it went too long.
You did. And actually, I think one of the big takeaways was you have to really look for what you love doing. And in the
Yeah.
same way that you have a profound love of the crew, That's what makes you the perfect site manager, right? Because that's your North Star, South Star in this case. So Wayne, thank you. Thank you so much. Hang tight. We're going to split into campfire groups and everybody's going to have some more questions for you. So one moment, hang tight, and we'll be back.
Fantastic.